We're going to come to order, please. All set? Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Douglas Planning Board meeting for March 12th, 2019. The meeting is being recorded and is available for viewing on the Douglas Public Access Channel and on the Douglas website. We'll come to order at 7:06, and we're going to take first item on the agenda is, we're going to take the second item on the agenda is an A&R Locky Dam Properties, LLC, 63 Cedar Street. Just have your name and address, please, sir.
Robert Cheria, 12 Birch Street, Douglas, Mass.
Thank you, Rob.
My dad owns a piece of property up on Cedar Street, and we found that the neighbor's driveway was accidentally on the corner of the lot. So we wanted to break off this corner lot here on this plan and eventually deed it over to the neighbor, so he doesn't have to move his driveway. Where the lot still has more than 200 feet of road frontage and roughly more than 90,000 square feet of land.
Just barely.
Three, right.
Did you make that one revision that Bill had asked for, the town file number?
I believe everything.
Yeah, there were a couple of revisions, but yes, they did make all of the revisions requested.
There was no other comments.
Yeah, there were.
Oh, 14?
Yeah, I asked them to put a note on the plan regarding the Water Resource Protection Overlay District to address the access to the property, so they put the contours on the plan. So, you know, there were a
And
few.
the other notes? You got all those notes
Yeah.
on there?
Yeah, I know where this is. I know what's up with this. It's pretty straightforward.
Previously cut.
I'll make a motion
We did.
to,
We did sign a very similar A&R plan, a handful of months ago. This is, as Rob indicated, to create just a small parcel because the neighbor's driveway was found to be on the property.
Right.
okay, I'll make a motion to endorse the plan for A&R 63 Cedar Street, Lackey Dam Properties, LLC.
I'll second.
Made by Tracy, seconded by Aaron. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. One Mylar, Rob?
Yes.
Mylar pens. Yep.
1 Mylar and 4 copies.
You want to stamp now or stamp later?
We'll stamp them after. We're just doing a Mylar for now.
Which side? Double folded.
Sitting low.
We got up there, huh?
You're supposed to stand up or go to it or come around?
We can send that around, and while that's being signed, we can maybe start on the next.
Yep. Okay. All right. We'll go to our next item. Town council discussion, site plan review process, private ways and waivers.
So, I'm happy to jump right into what site plan is or isn't, but if you wanted to frame it with respect to the site plan that's before you, I'm also happy to discuss it in that context. So I don't know how you want to proceed on, but
I think it would be a good idea to start with what site plan review is.
okay. So site plan review is kind of a legal non-entity in a way. You can't find a thread to site plan review in the statutes. There's a number of guidance documents out there, and the cases discuss site plan review. But site plan review, in its purest sense, is really a creature of local bylaws. So under the Zoning Act, Chapter 40A, you have a number of different things that can get before a zoning board or a planning board. Everything from appeals of building permits to requests for enforcements to requests for special permits, which you hear a bunch of, to requests for variances, which the zoning board hears from.
There you go, Rob.
So those are all statutory animals that have statutory processes behind them. But zoning bylaws can develop all kinds of other processes too. And they can develop own rules and ways of reviewing a project that isn't consistent in some way with zoning. One of those things that has developed over the years, and which most towns have, is site plan review. Now, site plan review can take on all different types of forms and have certain levels of complexity. Site plan review at its core is something that always existed somewhere between special permits and by right uses, where you didn't want to necessarily elevate something to a special permit, which requires a supermajority vote, but you did want to have something more rigorous than just a by right use. You wanted to at least check in and have someone review it. Along those lines, site plan review was used to kind of develop to have more of a design review, kind of more of an aesthetic review. Hey, you check the boxes, and we're just trying to shape the general appearance of projects and make sure that you're at least doing the minimum. So the way it developed is that because it's not a process like a special permit where a board has deference under the statutes and the cases to say no pretty much with impunity, or saying very little at the very least, similar to other processes, site plan review is really kind of by right on steroids. So it compels someone to come in and present you with the kind of plans and at least check certain boxes. But if they check those boxes, the amount of discretion that the board has is much less. Technically speaking, you really can't say no if they check the boxes. Now, if one of the boxes is they have to comply with zoning, which is typical in site plan review, then they have to comply with zoning. And if it shows a zoning violation, you can say no. If it says something that drainage shall comply with all state and stormwater management, and it doesn't, well, you could say no, because that's just a basic mechanical box to check. But what it can't do, if you decide to make something just generic site plan review, is it can't say no because I don't like the project. It doesn't work like that. So if you have chosen in your zoning bylaws, and town meeting has approved it, to allow site plan review, you're taking that discretionary overlay off of it. Whereas a special permit, you could say, you know what, I don't think it's right for that neighborhood, so I'm going to say no. And you can do that more or less with impunity. With site plan, you don't have that right. Again, you're looking at those kind of mechanical and technical issues. Does it have adequate sewer capacity? Does it will it affect the groundwater? Or, these types of mechanical, scientific things and technical compliance issues, but not rising to the level of kind of that community character and social kind of welfare, the kind of welfare for the well-being of the neighborhoods and the communities. So that's kind of the difference. Now, some towns have chosen to take site plan and merge it with special permit and essentially require a special permit site plan. And then some towns have two levels of site plan, one for light projects where it's this kind of by right, and another one where it's a heavier project, could be number of square feet of a building, where it pushes into the special permit world. And then some towns will say, if your site plan already requires a special permit, then it kind of elevates the status there a little bit. So you guys have generic site plan review for certain types of projects that hit the thresholds, including some that I know you've been talking about. And your discretion is much less for those. Does that mean you have no ability to shape a project? Usually an applicant trying to work with you will work with you to kind of shape the project. They need other approvals. They sometimes have to deal with other boards on certain other permits or tax agreements or other things. So there's a vested interest in getting through the process and working with you. And that's what site plan is supposed to be, this kind of working together kind of thing. Doesn't always work out like that. I've had site plan thrown in my face when people come and say, well, you can't say no, complies with drainage, complies with zoning, I've checked every single box in your bylaw, and so there it is. So that's more or less what site plan is, and sometimes you feel stung, like, I wish we had a special permit for this and not site plan.
Right.
But that's the process. That's what town meeting chose to do for certain things. And the good news about site plan is sometimes it catches projects that don't otherwise fit in some other box. So at least there's some availability of a process for you to check in and try and work with an applicant to engage Bill, to engage maybe a traffic guy or something and kind of and see it through. So it's not all frustration. And sometimes when you're trying to promote some economic development and you have a site plan process rather than a rigorous special permit process, it's a way to kind of open the doors a little bit to those kinds of economic development interests. So it's some good, some bad, but it is what it is. And you have a pretty straightforward, not super lengthy site plan review. There's some good opportunity for review in it, but if, again, the boxes get checked,
Right.
your right to say no is significantly decreased.
Okay. If we wanted to take it to the next level where we had more say, that would take an act at town meeting to do that, right? We would have to,
Yeah, you would have to move it in
a bylaw
into that
type
world.
formation?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You could add some more process to it. You could kind of, if you wanted to keep it site plan review, you could add more boxes to check. You could do that. And that way it would take it to still somewhere less than special permit, but more than kind of a generic review thing. So you have that ability too. You could add all kinds of wildlife things and, other
right?
little bits and pieces. Now, I often recommend when towns feel that they've been burned on a site plan review or that it's run its course, you know what, push it into the special permit world if that's what you want to do, but you're going to have to get that through town meeting.
Town meeting, right?
Then, business interests might say, whoa, hold on a sec, we're relying on it too. So there's a lot of different masters you have to serve. That's why this process exists. It can be helpful. Even more so than the process itself being frustrating, appealing a denial or a condition of it is even more convoluted under the cases, because again, it doesn't exist under the statute. So the process to challenge is can be very difficult.
Aaron, yeah?
So currently, and we want everybody to hear, I want to hear, as it is crafted before us, we've heard from Mr. Tercino, and we've heard from the politicians, is a letter.
Which
that
doesn't
say-
really discuss site plan review.
Well, I'd like to know, the point was said, we don't have to approve this from the audience. I want to hear you speak of that based on the checking of the boxes. What are we missing as a board that gives us the ability to say no? Because if we say no, that we know this is going to come back through courts anyway, and you're saying if they check the boxes, they're going to win in the end anyway if they want to do the project. I mean, tell us what we're supposed to be doing, our responsibility here.
So let's say they didn't need any other permits or approvals for a specific site plan review project. So this was the only stop that they had on the road to development for whatever project it is, this project or another project. And let's say you said no, and even though you weren't entitled to, because as I often say when I'm counseling boards or town meetings, I can't really give legal advice on principles. So sometimes you might want to just say no. And I'm never going to tell someone not to say no. I might give you the risks and benefits of saying no. But, so what happens if you said no to this project, for example, and they didn't need anything else in the meantime? Then they could say, they can't go straight to court unless your bylaw doesn't have that
Well, it says
provision.
special permit.
Appeals, yeah. Method
Same-
of special
same-
permit.
Same process as special permit.
It does, so it invokes 4817?
Yes.
And okay, so they can go straight to court. Normally, they would have to pull a building permit. I wouldn't last too long in the court. I might be able to push their buttons and leg it out for a while, but even though, and you've seen me, I mean, I go to court for you
I've
guys all the time.
been there with you.
We win cases, because special permits, variances, all those other things, all the deference lies with you and with me when I'm fighting these. Site plan review, scale flips completely, and I'd likely lose.
But in the meantime, what does the town spend in defending something like that when we're going to lose? I mean, is it dollars? Is it $100? Is it $10,000? Is it anything that we should be concerned about, a fight to the bitter end, or what is something like, I just want to know the ramifications.
There are costs in litigation. They can be significant. My relationship with the town financially is that it's actually very economical to litigate, but there's no such thing as a free lunch when it comes to litigation. These services are expensive. I do cover some forms of litigation within my fee arrangement that is a set monthly thing, but not everything is covered. But then there's also witness fees and other assorted costs related to it. So I couldn't pinpoint it, but anyone who's ever been in litigation knows that it's really expensive. No one wants to pay me to do anything.
We all get served, probably. Not by dinner either.
Yeah.
Could you just speak to the language in our bylaw that specifically land use and the environmental impacts? Because the board does have, under approval, I don't have it verbatim, but he's going to get it.
Yeah.
So you said ours is very generic, but under the approval, and someone had mentioned the master plan, under the approval, it does say land use development and a couple things in a row. Is that generically what people have in their site plan approvals?
Yeah, you see a lot of that, adherence to the master plan. But again, if someone completely comes in and ignores it and says, and the project is completely antithetical to something that was, say, matched in your master plan, or if you have a generic environment, won't harm the environment or something like that, and we see some of these things, that if someone completely ignores it, you absolutely can say no. But if they provide any...
Specifically that, second sentence, I think.
So I'm seeing 1 through 10. Site plan approval shall be granted upon determination by the planning board that new building construction or other site alteration after considering the qualities of the specific location, the proposed land use, the design, building form, grading, egress points, and other aspects of the development. You got pedestrian vehicular safety, so that's usually fairly technical in nature. Minimizing of volume of cut and fill, and of remove trees. So again, they can minimize. If they say we're clear cutting regardless, do you have some leverage there? Absolutely. It says minimize. So minimize visual intrusion by controlling visibility. So if they show some screening, again, it's not to say, again, that you have zero discretion. It's just that the balance is tipped on the other side.
Right.
So if someone completely ignores that and clear cuts a site and puts up, a big pink parking garage or something like that, I'd like your chances. If someone shows some minimal attention to detail, they're going to get the deference when we go to court, not us. Normally, in a special permit context, if this same clause existed in special permit and the screening was awesome and you still didn't like it, I win.
Okay.
Here, the tie goes to them at the very least, any kind of minimal effort. So
I understand the safety, but the first two things, the qualities of the land use development and the environment and something else, can you speak to
well,
that?
I think that it then is modified by satisfies all of the following objectives. So that's how it's defining. I mean, I think that language itself, that new building construction or other site alteration after considering the qualities of the so that gives you the context, the specific location, and then can it meet all these 1 through 10 objectives? So again, it's contextual, so every site is a little bit different, but based on that site, can they check these 10 boxes?
And there's no ratio of clear cutting. I mean, 30 acres of forest are going away, and I just...
No, and so I'm not going to say that we lose 100% of these cases, just as I wouldn't say if you denied a special permit that I'm automatically going to win. Overwhelming odds are that I win if you deny a special permit and do your job and have some reasonable findings. Just as here, an applicant's attorney, if you guys denied them, couldn't say to their client, oh, 100% we win. Any lawyer that ever says that is committing malpractice. It just doesn't work like that. All I'm saying is that the discretion is flipped back. So you would need an egregious case, a clear-cut, kind of unambiguous failure to meet one of these requirements for me to express more confidence. I don't know enough about this project. I've read the minutes. I've looked at some of the stuff, I spent some time with it since Bill looped me in a little bit. There are some elements of this project that I think objectively a reasonable person wouldn't necessarily like. Certainly, no one likes big projects near them. But we're dealing with a site plan. And that's where it becomes difficult. So I am not diminishing in any means the fact that there may be some negative elements to this or any other project. You know, whether it's solar or, you know, or the nicest use in the world, it doesn't matter.
But one more thing, the Dover Amendment, is this what particularly allows
Well,
this use in this area?
That's something we haven't gotten to yet. Because the Dover Amendment pushes it even further out. So that's kind of the next topic.
What does that mean further out when you're saying it that?
Further out, away from you, in terms of your ability to control.
Stop it.
So would you just say what the Dover
So
Amendment is?
The Dover Amendment is Chapter 48, Section 3, and it protects a number of different types of uses. Educational uses, agricultural, and religious are the big three that we hear about most often. Churches, farms, schools, group homes, all fit in under those, and towns routinely that have tried to say no to any of those have gotten their butts kicked, with some minor exceptions. I did just win a case on a group home out in Lincoln, but it was decided on very narrow grounds. There are other uses under the Dover Amendment that are also protected that we don't hear as much about. Daycare, licensed daycare facilities get Dover Amendment protection. Solar facilities get Dover Amendment protection. The language of each of these is slightly different, but what it comes down to is this, is that they developed the Dover Amendment because towns don't have a good track record of allowing these uses under their zoning bylaws. So what they say is, yeah, you can apply some process if you have a process for some of these uses, but what you can't do is say no. You just literally can't say no unless there is some serious public safety issue. Zero aesthetic control, I mean zero. It really has to rise to the level of a public safety or environmental issue of such extent that it really can't happen. Now, solar is kind of a unique animal. You don't allow or disallow solar under your use table at all. A town that does confine solar to a certain district, industrial say, might have the ability to combat a Dover Amendment claim. The town has chosen not to regulate solar in that way, in the same way that you've chosen to regulate wind power. So, even when a town chooses to put it in one district, the Dover Amendment still exists, and it's still a high burden to get over. Here, solar is allowed in every district in town, essentially, because it's Dover protected. You cannot zone it out. If the town had chosen through town meeting to stick it over in the industrial district and there was a lot of available lots there, still has to be reasonable, then, and this was in the residential district or some other district, then you might have an opportunity to at least whittle it down to size. That is not the case here. The only mechanism that you have that governs solar is site plan. What does that mean? That means that you can apply site plan and use it, but you can't use it in the same way that you could even use for other site plan approval projects. The only things you can apply are those kinds of core public health and safety issues. So the aesthetic things, the master planning things, all those compatibility with neighborhoods and structures, those are out the window. Those things are gone. What can you look at? There's some big cases under, say, the educational use that we look at. Boston College, for example, wanted to put in, when they built the new football stadium a bunch of years back, they wanted to do a big parking garage, like right there. And the city of Newton did not like it. And they fought about it and they fought about it. And the case came down that said the city of Newton could make them go for a special permit, so a win for Newton, because you at least made them go through the process, but they couldn't deny the project. All they could do was control things like, did it have sufficient parking? Did the drainage work? Could emergency vehicles get there? So it cut it down to the core kind of public health and safety issues. And all the esoteric issues, like impacts to neighborhood, were gone. and we see this routinely. I do a ton of Dover Amendment work, mostly on the public side, but sometimes on the private side too. Towns get the crap beat out of them. And sometimes it's unfair. I will be faced with a project as town council in a town that is objectively not a good project. And you just really lose your authority to say no to it. So we have that on top of the site plan issue, which takes several of these items and kind of really whittles them down to very little utility if in fact this board decided to say no. That doesn't mean you shouldn't. I'm not going to sit here and tell you no. I've sat on boards and I've wanted to say no regardless of what the statute says or doesn't say.
You wanted to, but did you? Yes. No?
I haven't been in that position. But, so for example, Chapter 40B, I've never been on my town zoning board, but zoning boards sit on Chapter 40Bs all the time. And anyone that's been in this town knows that this zoning board has had to deal with some tough 40Bs. Not as bad as some other communities, and I've long learned that you're gonna get beat no matter what you do, so you may as well fight. But I have some more tools there too. It's a slightly different animal. So again, never let me try and counsel you on your principles. I'm just saying that there's not a huge path forward when something is A, in generic site plan approval, and B, is Dover protected as solar is here. Bill and I have talked throughout the years of, maybe it's time to advance something that kind of reins in solar or puts it in a specific area of town that makes a little more sense. A lot of towns are playing catch up with solar because it has exploded so much. You are not unique. You haven't dropped the ball or anything on it, but it's a tough one to regulate.
So, I don't mean to, everybody just come right in this. So you're saying, we're a town that has a lot of large parcels that are privately held. We also have Douglas State Forest, which is not privately held, it's held by the state. So these public parcels, anywhere they are subject to the development based on single phase or two-phase, whatever it is that they need, two-phase, to do a large solar project like this, based on the fact we have a lot of these pockets of large forests that are privately held. They are subject to, you're saying, the Dover Amendment, which then allows, by right, through solar to go in.
With some generic site plan approval.
With site plan.
Yes, that's what I am saying.
So, Jay, what about the concern regarding the drinking water? And I think Bill and I have talked about unfiltered water coming off the site and stuff. So the environmental concerns.
So always, again, I'd let the science be your guide. That is a kind of core public health, but there'd be two things. First, you would have to regulate that issue here. So there would have to be some element here that. So I'm looking at number 9, for example, minimize contamination of groundwater from on-site wastewater disposal system. That doesn't apply. Or operations on premise involving the use, storage, handling, or containment of hazardous substances. You can't, what the Dover Amendment doesn't allow you to do is make up regulation or go into an area that your bylaw doesn't already go to. So you have to kind of follow whatever's in here. To allow you to get there. So yeah, I see there's adequate stormwater management under number 7, so that, you can go a certain places. There are some standards here. I'm going to suggest to you it's going to be based upon the number of solar projects I've reviewed, the notion that you could demonstrate through your factual findings that there would be that kind of contamination is probably going to be a difficult cross to bear. But again, there's a lot of science out there on these things, but that's a difficult item.
So at this point, the public hearing specifically for this project has been closed. So we wouldn't be able to put conditions for, say, you talked about the clear cutting. Adjusting buffers,
Sure you could.
we're just calling them out because the plan is, as it's presented, don't we have to vote on, or?
Well, yes and no, but it says the board may impose reasonable conditions at the expense of the applicant, including performance guarantees to promote these objectives. So I think it would be a reasonable condition if you said that you wanted to see a final screening that minimized clear cutting, and that plan would have to come for you for administrative approval, or to staff for administrative approval, that, the board finds that they could preserve more trees, based upon the facts before. I think that would be reasonable. Again, I think you have to know where the line is. If you were doing something that nullified the project, like let's say I was involved in one in a town of Lunenburg, and where the board said, well, it says they have to do some screening for solar, and they're at 100 feet. We want 250 feet of screening, 250 deep of screening. First of all, they couldn't demonstrate that it was going to be less visible or more visible or what. But second, it would have reduced the project, squeezed it so much it would not have qualified. They couldn't have made it go financially. So yes, absolutely. If there are some cosmetic improvements you could do through conditions that met some of your goals here, I would hope a fair-minded applicant would say, yeah, we can do that.
But now that it's closed, the hearing is closed, does the board have the discretion to still have discussion based on other information that came in to craft the project in a more palatable sense? I mean, do we have that discretion
You don't
now?
have the discretion to take in new facts and new plans.
Not
but
new facts.
We didn't.
You do have the discretion to take the plans you have. Let's say
course.
Tracy puts the plan down on the table and says they've cut all the trees here and all the trees here. I think that, within the bounds of what they're trying to do solar-wise, we could have them beef up the screening over here, or choose a different type of tree,
You're
have
saying
a
even
more
now?
final landscaping plan.
Even now? Like
Well, as a
saying-
condition of approval.
Right.
So I don't know how detailed their landscaping plan is, for example, but if you wanted to switch it to more evergreen, I mean, there are things you can do in terms of landscaping and planting that won't nullify the project, so you're not really affecting the Dover side of it, that are still within the confines of your bylaw here, that are reasonable in nature. Again, you run the risk as the dollars tick up in terms of the cost of development, that someone may challenge those conditions.
So there was a question about two egresses on the site. I think we had a discussion on that.
I think I saw an engineering note, though, that,
We went to one.
I mean, given the really lack of vehicular traffic, I think is what I was seeing a reference to, that a second means of access as opposed to what you would seek in a subdivision probably wasn't indicated. So again, if there's something that you want to do that really affects public safety legitimately, I have no quarrel with trying to help you craft a condition that gets you there. Something that really isn't warranted under the facts. I'm not saying it is or isn't. I know you're just kind of blue skying a kind of condition, which is fine. Just, I think you'll know it when you see it. You're all really smart. You've all done this a bunch of times. You're going to look at, as you sit and deliberate over conditions, you're going to see things that you want to improve on the plan that won't break the back of this project, but will address some of the concerns you're hearing from the neighborhood. Any common sense things that maybe someone didn't think of yet in terms of whether it be trees, planting, signage, try it.
But the thing the NIMBY thing, not in my backyard, is not allowed for us to say that because of the Dover Amendment?
The Dover Amendment, more or
We
less.
have no choice? What do you mean more or less? Do we have no choice? Or
The
we do have
Dover
choice?
Amendment, I get, as someone who defends town decisions, I think that even though, I think NIMBY's become a dirty word in a way. Yes, in its pure sense, if people are opposing something just
I don't
because
take it
it's
as
in
a
their
dirty word.
backyard.
Yeah.
But sometimes a project in someone's backyard really does suck.
Yeah.
And you really do want to say no for the right reason. So, but yeah, your point is well taken. If it's just that we don't like it here, that isn't going to get you there under Dover Amendment. It's just not going to get you there. So,
So you're saying that would be the inevitable come to court on that basis?
again, I would think so. I mean, I had a solar project recently in a town where I think the board felt, and they had a special permit requirement, so it was special permit versus Dover. And I think that they made a reasoned judgment that they were gonna fight it. And ultimately, the party walked away, so they got lucky. My counsel to them in executive session, which is now no longer needed, was, we're gonna lose if this person fights it out.
Anybody else have any questions on this?
Nope.
We pretty much got a sense of where we stand with site plan review and what our obligations are.
We still have a review of what the review's 120 days or
Right.
If you're in the
For
special
decision?
permit process, yeah.
It's like, you know you have to eat your peas,
90.
but you don't like them. You know,
90
something
days.
like that.
Look, I mean, it's frustrating. I have, whether it's 40B or Dover Amendment, I have scars up and down my back from trying to defend towns from these things. It's hard.
Yep.
It's hard. We put up fights. If I'm told to fight this ultimately because you say no, I'll fight it as hard as I can go. I might get beat up a little bit. I don't like to lose either. So, but it's hard.
You've done pretty good.
I've done okay.
Okay, so, anything else on site plan review? Okay, so we know pretty much where we stand and what our obligation is then.
Well, we
Right,
have 90
right.
days, so.
Private.
And then as far as the audience goes, so any comments, general comments, any questions, really the public hearing is closed.
Yeah, so no new facts. If
Yeah.
people want to write you letters and urge you to do something or else, I mean, it's part of your record. It's just not part of the evidentiary record that you consider. If someone sends in a new plan, you don't have the ability to consider a new study or something else like that. You don't have the ability to consider new evidence. But if someone wants to give you an opinion, you're probably all getting emails. So,
I'm not.
no,
I'm not-
no.
But their presence is known. and
look,
We have to recognize that there's a lot of
nothing
people
about the
here.
open meeting law that prohibits
Okay.
anyone from giving their input. No one is entitled to speak at your deliberations.
Mm-hmm.
That's up to the board, but certainly no new facts. But if someone, wanted to sway you in some way, it's not a fact. It's not
Opinion.
like a fact, but it is someone's opinion.
Yeah, 90 days.
Yeah.
I would just caution the board to tread lightly
Yes.
in any post-closed meeting discussion.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
No, we don't, that's not gonna be a problem.
What? I'm sorry. Jay just said you could have any
I
opinions.
know, I'm just saying.
Okay, I don't
We don't
know.
want to give any,
Let's clarify so
we
we
don't
can
want to
get
give
it.
any leverage for any argument to possibly arise, whether it's founded or, Jay's qualifying what he's saying for post-closed hearing discussion.
Yes.
He's saying it has to meet certain parameters. Can't be fact. It has to be opinion. So once we start getting into the qualified discussions after a hearing's closed, I'm cautioning the board about having any discussion, just to
Yeah,
take that issue off
amongst
the
each
table.
other.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, no.
okay.
Well,
But look, if
Those work together.
if someone's at a ball game or at the supermarket and someone comes up and bends your ear on it, or someone shoots you a private email or a text
say
or
the word
something like
shoot.
that, it's not like you have to hit delete. That's what I'm saying. You're human.
Yeah, I wasn't talking about the
No,
members
right.
here. I'm talking about these people in the audience. So,
Citizens.
yeah, the citizens
I mean,
that are
it's a
concerned
small
with.
town. You run into people at work. You run into people socially. It's
Correct.
Well, you guys have.
It's going to
broad
come up. It's a hot
shoulders.
topic. Okay, anything else on site plan review, anybody?
I'm just gonna say, like, on the clear cutting, like you're talking about, I mean, a landowner can go get a forestry permit through the forestry system and actually clear cut the land.
Most of us can just cut down every single tree on our property at
Right.
any time, unless you're in some kind of conservation.
So, I mean, it's something that can be done no matter what. Not that it's gonna happen, but there are people, you can do it.
That said, I think screening is a
big
fair
thing.
area to.
Right.
Yeah.
Which we've been real good at in the last couple of solar projects.
Yeah, I mean, I would be more thinking of increasing buffers than adding trees after you've cleared them. I would like leaving it untouched instead of
Yeah, keep a
paying
natural
for
buffer.
trees and adding more trees.
Keep a natural buffer.
That's something.
Yeah.
Right, less screening, more trees, natural trees.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not picturing like
Yeah.
a greenery place, like, I mean, there's a lot of deer out there, so I don't think you're doing arborvitae's or anything, but.
Okay, we have Jay here for a certain amount of time, so, private ways.
I'll just give a little intro on this.
Jay's favorite subject.
As you may recall, we have recently adopted a bylaw, general bylaw, that allows the town to do certain things on private ways. And as you further know, that we have a number of types of private ways that come before the board, whether it's a residential compound or whether it's a, smaller type subdivision where a lot of waivers are requested. Typically, we require homeowners maintenance associations. So basically, I wanted to give you an update on one particular project, but really, it's not about this particular project per se. It's really an issue that the board needs to take a specific direction on.
Correct.
I'm talking about Isabella Drive, Maple Heights Estates. Mr. Dumas is here tonight. Mr. Dumas and Jay went to the selectmen's meeting, and the chairman went to the selectmen's meeting this past week. I came up with a surety value of approximately $75,000 of work remaining on the project. The third lot in the subdivision, and just to refresh your memory, the lot has three lots in it. Two of them have been built on, and that's per the original planning board decision that surety would be used by withholding the release of the third lot from the no-build covenant. Conventionally, we would require a cash surety or some type of surety other than a no-build covenant. That wasn't the case here. The original developer was foreclosed on. The subdivision lies with the funding agency. They've not done anything towards advancing the subdivision to a finished product, so it's been left in binder course of paving and, not loamed and seeded in areas, that kind of thing. So we brought that to the Board of Selectmen. Mr. Dumas initially brought it to the Board of Selectmen and wanted them to support his request to possibly, consider having it become a public way or at least finishing the project. And the selectmen didn't necessarily agree with that. They wanted the planning board, because it's a private way, to, pursue finishing completion of the project with the developer, and possibly, trying to get some kind of mechanism so that we're not left in this kind of situation as we move forward. So with that said, I don't know, Jay, if you want to add anything to that.
So, you have a lot of private ways in town. It's difficult to prioritize which private ways may be a good candidate for municipal work on. And there's a number of different masters you have to serve. Some of those private ways you want to get some snow plowing. Some of them you may want to do some physical improvements on so that the fire truck can get down. But the process for developing a private way into a public way is something that every town has to make a decision over.
Is it at the discretion of the board? I mean, because you think about some of the public ways, like Cemetery Street or Cemetery Road, which probably doesn't have the drainage and wouldn't meet the standards of today. Again, think of like a 30-foot width road, a right-of-way road, and I think the pavement width is like, what, 20 feet or so. Is there a way where the board, because what we end up losing out as a town is the Chapter 90 money maintaining these roads that are private ways. Is there a way of, or is it at the discretion of the board at some point accepting these private ways into a public way?
Well, the
based
board
upon
has a
priority?
role, and generally speaking, the selectmen will defer, and very often town meeting will defer to the planning board too. And usually, most towns have ways that are going to be public, at least go through some kind of review and recommendation process through the planning board. I don't think that's any different here. I think that exists too. But statutorily, it's the selectmen have the first shot at it through the layout process, and they have to decide generally with the recommendation of the planning board or DPW or a combination of those, or highway or fire or police, all the stakeholders in it. Just so nothing ever binds the Board of Selectmen to saying yes. There's no standard of review. They are not required ever to lay something out. Everyone in town could be in favor of making a roadway public, and if the selectmen decide not to do it, it's not going to happen, period. The second element of it is that it has to be approved at town meeting.
Yeah, great.
The acceptance, and generally at that time, there's usually an ownership issue also addressed at town meeting, and then the third part is that actually has to get effectuated. So the planning board, again, most towns have a process whereby roadways that are up for acceptance or for consideration for acceptance are going to get reviewed by the planning board. Some towns won't even consider it if it's not in a certain condition.
Fair enough. Okay.
Sometimes they might say, okay, we're willing to spend money to bring this road up to standards. Rare, but you have to prioritize. There's not enough money. Chapter 90 doesn't give you enough. I'm sure it would be awesome if every single road in town was brought up and the potholes were removed and the brush was cleared and the drainage worked better. It's just not going to happen. You can't get enough money to pay salaries and health insurance. You're just not going to get to some roads. So every year, a few come up. Developers of subdivisions want theirs done, and generally they come to you more turnkey, a done road. It's easy. It's free Chapter 90 money if you want to do it. You don't have to. It's the older roads that were never intended to be public that or predate that you have a decision to make as to how you're prioritizing it. And it's usually dollars and cents. It comes down to that.
No. Perfect.
Is there a method for the town to take the last buildable lot, auction it off to pay for the road?
Not if they're paying taxes. There are ways, Tracy, but not like a town can form an economic development corporation that allows them to do certain things
Or
like that.
eminent domain?
There is some eminent domain things. You could exercise it if you say you want to make an affordable unit. Could you?
Yeah.
You could.
I'm
But then
just
you're
saying-
not only going to be paying for the road, but also for the...
For action, to get some action there. Because
there
I don't think
are
that the
other
town should be
mechanisms.
responsible to take care of this.
One thing that we discussed with respect to this project is to maybe get to whoever may be left from this development organization with another letter.
Yep.
And I know Bill has sent a number of letters on your behalf. Maybe something comes out on my letterhead. Could I sustain and file an action in court to say, hey, fix this road or else? The likely result of that is going to be like, no.
No.
What are you going to do?
Yeah.
So let's say I get a court order
Sparks some
to say
discussion.
that they're going to fix the road, and they don't. They say, no, I'm not going to do it. So what would be my next step? The court order would be say, well, we'll fix it and we'll create a lien against your lot, which I could then foreclose on.
Yeah.
So what happens there? A, we spend more money than they would spend fixing it because we have prevailing wage to deal with. Second, we're behind the mortgage. So can we go through a lengthy process and spend money on lawyers and experts and do all that stuff? We can. We did this in Southbridge recently. We did take a roadway, not lots, but we took a roadway against the banks and the property old developers will, because people were living up there.
Yep.
But what are we going to do? And this is why you have a bylaw where there was like 80 property owners up there, and when we assess the betterment, it's going to be spread out. You assess a betterment on 75 grand worth of work here
On 3 lots.
amongst 2 property or 3 property owners, one of whom's never going to pay your betterment, and it becomes more expensive than if they went out and got bids themselves. So.
I'm sorry, Trace, go ahead.
No, that's okay. I mean, the ultimate responsibility is now the homeowner's trust, like you had mentioned, that, I mean, people know that this is a private way when they purchase the lots. There is a risk that it will get
There is.
finished. Is it in disrepair? I don't know when you get to the point where the emergency vehicles can't access it and it becomes a safety problem. I don't know if we determine that the road needs to be repaired.
So
I don't
in
know if
this
we can do
instance-
that.
Right, in this instance,
gravel.
I don't think in this specific fact pattern that it's yet at that point. And these people also have a private right of action. Now, I have some sympathy on the homeowners association documents because a lot of us have bought houses, and I didn't review with a fine tooth comb every single thing in my chain of title. I generally think that a homeowners association would have caught my eye, but sometimes people don't look at those things. I'm a lawyer, so I might look at those things. You're in the business, you might look at those things. So, but not everyone would. So I have some sympathy to that, where I wouldn't just say, hey, you knew what you were getting into. It's not, and I know that's not what you're saying, Tracy.
Right.
But there is a buyer beware element of it to a certain degree. You know what you're getting into. The decision here was made expressly with the notion that the town wasn't going to have to deal with this because it was just a little roadway. The developer saved a whole bunch of dough. What I might suggest in the future is that we maybe shy away from a kind of,
That's secure.
this was like a built-in covenant with something that
Cash.
maybe gives leverage in a down economy
Cash
for
bond or-
someone to walk out. I mean, we can't dictate that
Yeah.
necessarily because they can choose their own surety device, but the
Can certainly
release
ask.
of lots, you would be more stingy on. All that said, there are developments throughout Douglas, throughout the Blackstone Valley, throughout Massachusetts, that every downturn in the economy, we lose a few subdivisions. I have tried every single kind of surety device, bond, covenant, everything, and in one way, shape, or form, none of them are fully adequate. I could have an awesome cash bond, it's still, as years go by, it's hard to do. We have to get access to private ways. It's hard. None of the enforcement mechanisms are perfect. If someone truly walks away, you're left holding a big bag, and it's never pleasant, and you're never going to be whole on it. You're never going to find a white knight with a bag of cash that's going to fix it for you.
And did Mr. Dumas present any proposals for finishing the road work? I know Bill has calculated one, but for a non-prevailing wage,
I'm not aware of
there's
one,
a-
Tracy.
Okay, all right.
I'm not aware of one.
Because I would be curious, and then, there's a mechanism for the homeowners association to charge, the Emerald funding
There
person.
absolutely is. Now, if I were, because again, this is all private, I might suggest, and I'm sure they've tried, and Mr. Dumas seems like a great guy, and I feel for them, and they've tried everything, or try and get together with the bank and market. It's a buildable lot, from what I understand. It's not tinged by wetlands. It's a little bit odd shaped, but
Yeah.
market this
That's
thing.
good.
Do
Yeah.
something. Get some house up there. There are builders around that might be interested, so.
But as far as maybe like a mechanic's lien or something on that lot's share of the bill for finishing the road, I mean, there must be something that they can do. They've got to do it on their own, though. We really can't do it. Like, we're like the fifth person down that kind of should be involved in this.
I mean, most problems can be solved if there's enough money. If there's enough money to pay the attorney to bring the current institution that owns the lot to bear in court, to get injunctions, to get the kind of liens that you want, to get the judge's sympathy on those things, to establish and then foreclose on it. Yeah, if there was an infinite supply,
Well, as far as the frontage is related to the buildability of that lot, couldn't you put a third of the fee towards the road? And then have the homeowners association,
yeah, I guess
care of
the
it.
only issue becomes getting blood out of a stone. How much resources?
well, there's a
are you-
buildable lot, too.
Oh, right,
So,
and that's why I get it. I mean, I don't think that, you have a lot that is worth 100,000, maybe a little bit more. You got 75,000 in road work to be done. Everyone contributes a little bit. The bank's willing to take a little bit of a loss to recoup whatever they have, and you work on the price, and something here gets done.
well, the 75 is
Prevailing
the
wage.
town's, yeah.
Right, all right.
I would like to see an actual proposal, that would have been really helpful so that we can,
Lean up to us.
Well, we're entertaining it though. It's been
Got the
through
quantity.
the, yeah.
We're talking
my
about,
council.
we're talking about the process. Now, look, I think that's great, and the interest in wanting to be a vehicle that helps homeowners is incredibly altruistic, and I think you should do whatever you can to be a resource. That said, there's a finite amount of help that you can provide.
Would a carefully crafted letter on your stationery, on your letterhead to Emerald?
My letters have gone
Yeah,
unanswered and unopened,
we've sent,
frankly.
you've sent several, and we've had no response. I think maybe.
And I'm not saying my letters are more crafty than Bill's. Sometimes the letterhead
But the
itself-
letterhead is a little
Yeah.
bit more intimidating, maybe.
Yeah, you
We got to work on Bill's letterhead.
get a green font or something, I don't know.
I'd be happy to, Ernie.
Would you do that?
Sure,
And
I'll work
that-
with Bill to do that.
That would be, in the opinion of the town, to get the road finished up, and that's it.
Yeah, and the selectmen
The-
and myself and
Promise.
Bill and
Conversation with the
Ernie to
selectmen.
discuss
Right.
Okay.
leaning a little bit. It may not result in anything, but you never know.
It's something we haven't tried.
I just want to ask one thing while we're talking about stuff. On all these solar farms projects, we have decommissioning funds set aside.
Yeah.
How secure are those funds? Like you were saying about on this bond stuff, a lot of it, if somebody really wants to walk away, we're left
So
in the
my
bag.
decommissioning agreements are pretty solid.
Okay. So the town, the properties, everything is pretty well on the safe
If a
side?
bank fails or a bond company goes haywire and bankrupt, well, it doesn't make recourse more difficult. I mean, I would try and angle for as much of a cash product
Right.
as I could. It's not always possible, but I have pretty tight restrictions
Good.
on bonding companies. I've done some decommissioning. We've done a decommissioning?
We have not done a decommissioning, but the one thing, some of the newer members on the board, not you, Ernie,
Yeah.
might recall Shady Knolls Estates, where the surety company that they use was out of New York. And, obviously they failed. We had to call in the surety. They said they don't have any more money or didn't want to support
10
the
cents on the
project.
dollar.
We would have had to litigate in New York.
Right.
Okay?
So my agreement says that it's a Massachusetts
Good, okay.
contract, and it's,
All right.
they submit to the jurisdiction of Massachusetts. Again, none of these things are perfect.
No, but we're trying to take every step possible to protect.
I will
all the
tell
way
you that
around.
bonding companies are really not fond of the agreement that I work with, and sometimes it ends up where we end up back with a more local bank that is used to a tri-party agreement or some kind of other more cash-oriented
Okay.
document. So we are entitled to control the form of the agreement. We're not really entitled to choose the nature of where the cash is coming from. We have a little leeway and we can push hard on it, but my decommissioning agreement I've worked on since we started to develop security for both wind and solar projects. It's pretty tight at this
Good.
point. I like it.
Okay.
So,
No, good to know.
and you can force them to sign it. So that's one area of control that we have pretty good control over.
Yep.
Has it been tested yet? You did one decommissioning somewhere?
I have a few decommissionings out there where we've accessed some money.
Was it solar or wind?
Not the wind ones that I have,
Okay.
because I haven't had to access the surety. We've accessed some restoration where they decommission the physical components of a solar, but the restoration components, we had a bifurcated decommissioning agreement. Part of it was the metal,
Right.
and part of it was restoring the land, and we were able to tap the land. It's not particularly different. You're going to see a really similar form to the form I use for your subdivision security.
Okay.
It's not very different. I keep evolving it to keep a leg up for you all. So.
Can you share both of those with the board? Your subdivision one as well as this?
Well, you've seen my subdivision ones probably already, but yeah, I'll share anything you want.
We've had the solar
Solar?
on
Yeah.
the last two. Yeah.
The surety one?
Yeah.
All right, so as far as this bill of weight
Yeah.
goes, we'll,
Yeah, I'll do what I can. I'll work with
Audience,
Bill. I'll
if he
get
wants.
more information from Mr. Dumas as need be, and we'll send a firm letter and see where it gets us. And I'll also offer in the letter some ways out for the current property owner.
okay.
Fair enough.
Okay, we'll keep you in the loop, Mr. Dumas. Okay?
Can I say one thing?
Yeah, sure.
So, I did know going into this, there were risks, but, you know, Bill and I or other town representatives discussed the no-bill covenant. Okay, so, in those discussions, you know, and the fact that this development was actually, developed in 2006, I came in 2011, and, in 2006 is when all of this occurred. I'm coming in 2011. I'm seeing the no-bill covenant, and the town is a stand-up town, they're gonna stand behind it. And now it's not looking like that at all. You know what I mean? And I mean, I'm hoping that, you know, this will progress into, you know, helping us out. But honestly, I did everything I could. I even had a bond with Brian Dacey's brother, and you know, the town, you know, in discussions with the town, they said it wasn't necessary. We had a no-bill covenant, it was already planned, and I don't know if that would have helped, but I'm just saying I did everything possible to prevent this kind of mess, and it still happened. Okay, so.
Okay, well, we'll keep you in the loop, and we'll certainly try to get in touch with Emerald and see if we can go any further on this.
What about waivers?
Yep, next is waivers.
Waivers
trying
and
to
private ways
leave.
were together.
Oh, were they? Because
okay.
there's
Yeah,
a
because private
backslash.
ways usually come with the waiver.
Well, yeah, we didn't mention anything, but
Waiver.
yeah, that's what, usually when
Didn't even
developing
say
a
one
private way,
word.
that's what the reason we give them all the waivers is because
Yeah, in exchange.
in
yeah.
exchange for
Yeah, you get a lot of
never
benefits,
becoming a
yeah.
public road,
Yeah.
right? So we're all.
But
anybody have
as
any
far as
questions on that?
the snow removal, also, that's part of that too.
We don't do, no
Yeah.
snow removal, no sanding, no drainage. We don't maintain that
Right.
road. That's there.
And that was in the decision,
private
Right,
way?
it was in the
Yeah.
decision.
Yeah.
for that approval of the new private way,
Yeah.
Yeah.
non-existing ones.
Okay.
But you do the older ones, from what you said earlier.
Yes.
Well, there's roads that have
Historically.
existed in town since the town was,
Historical ways.
So snow removal is different than maintenance. So snow removal, a town can choose to remove snow on a private way without any liability to keep removing that snow. But once a town starts repairing a private way,
They own it.
they own at least the repair. So if you repair potholes and the next time a plow goes out and chews them up, you gotta go back out, then you're liable. So the lawyer in me says, don't do that.
yeah.
The snow plowing is a policy decision sometimes that towns choose to do certain private ways.
Isn't there a liability issue there?
Not with snow
of
plowing.
Plowing roads,
Not with snow plowing,
when there's residents living on them,
No.
in case of emergency,
no,
No.
no?
no.
Old wives' tale. I think there's a question behind that
Yeah.
about snow.
What's
Just
your,
have a quick question in
about-
regards to
about what?
private ways.
yeah.
As far as betterments go, since town council's here, is there a process within town for betterments? That way,
Yes, there is. Yeah, if you,
private ways can fund their own.
Improvements?
What that process is.
yeah.
So there's two processes. One, you have a specific bylaw where people can kind of petition on their own and come in, where a town can essentially do work on a private way. It's pursuant to a specific statute, and you've adopted a bylaw under that.
Correct.
Where a town then can just generically assess the cost of that. That doesn't make it a public way, but it's a way for a town to improve a private way. But a town could also do a road betterment on any property at any time that it sees fit. It generally is a precursor to making it public, but doesn't necessarily have to be.
Well, that's interesting. So you're saying that even if a road might only be 14 feet wide and it's been there for 110 years, a dirt road, the people that live in that street could petition the town for a betterment. It'll never be a public way, but they could use their tax dollars in the future to get that road paved or such?
Yeah, it's an interesting process because it's often against their own financial interests because it's more expensive
to have us do
town
it.
to do it than if they had all passed the hat together. I guess it could be used for, if not everyone is on board in the neighborhood, but the majority of the homeowners in the development wanted to get it done, they could push to have that done. It would become pretty divisive. Town still has to pay for it up front, which means it still has to go to town meeting.
But you pay over time through the
Well,
additional
the betterment
betterment
tax.
taxes.
It's a fixed number of years.
Number of years.
Yeah.
And so you're saying a majority, if there are, say,
I think
seven
your bylaw
houses?
says a majority of people, or.
It's general bylaw, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it says a majority. I don't
Majority of landowners fronting on the way.
Yeah, can come in and petition for it.
Right.
So if they wanted to like have sewer ran.
And who do they petition? Is it the selectmen or?
They go through the selectmen and then
it's
town
good.
meeting.
But I
Town
can see
meetings
how
for
it
the
could be
appropriation.
divisive. There are folks that might
Oh,
have a summer
yeah.
place, and they're like, we like the dirt and whatever, so.
Well,
Yeah.
or they don't want to pay the money. They might hate their roadway, but they don't want to add on to essentially their mortgage.
Yep,
Because they're going to
get
be
that.
paying
No, we-
a certain amount.
It's not on their mortgage, right? It's outside their mortgage. It's a lien. It's a lien.
Yeah,
Betterment
If
lien.
it's rolled
It's a
in,
betterment
you're
lien,
saying.
right?
Yeah, which means it's worse than your mortgage because it's in front of your mortgage. It's a
front of it, but it's-
municipal lien, so it's it's got first priority.
For- yeah,
Town gets
right.
dibs.
Yeah, but it's not interest. It's
Oh,
usually-
yeah.
Yeah.
It's interest based.
It's low interest,
Low
but
interest.
it's interest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other ones I've seen.
Tom?
Yeah.
And it's prevailing wage work.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Any other
So-
questions, Bob? No?
Thank you, Jake.
You're welcome.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
And when you get to decision time on the project, obviously, like I do with all decisions, I'll work with you all and Bill.
Okay.
So I'm
Is there a list of what items are Dover? That is.
What, 3 or 4?
Under
well,
the
there's a
actual
few
Dover
more.
Amendment
There's some
section.
research and development things,
Under the
but
Dover Amendment section.
educational,
Just
Like, do they have a
religious.
list? I mean,
Google it.
He's telling you.
all right, go ahead.
Yeah, he already told us what they were.
Educational, agricultural, religious,
Yeah,
and the educational includes some group homes,
all right, then you got solar,
solar, daycare.
Daycare.
so there's 5. Pretty
That
much.
was wind?
Wind.
No.
Not yet,
Oh,
Yeah.
not yet.
Okay.
I thought that was one of them.
People have talked about it.
Yeah.
It'd be pretty divisive, given how big those are.
Correct.
So,
Awesome.
those are the big, there's a couple smaller ones. Again, some research and development facilities, but it's very infrequently used. We're seeing a lot of solar now. I still see a lot of group homes. Agriculture, we're not seeing as much, but we still see it. Religious occasionally, but those were really more developed for, in churches, but it gets used. I mean, I've worked on some,
Okay,
so.
thanks.
Thanks, Jay.
Say that this?
Oh, yeah.
I'm not gonna bring it.
Yeah.
Good night.
But
Talk to you.
it's coming down the quick.
On the way up?
Did you see the Charlton?
Watch your steps.
Yeah.
They denied site plan review. It got overturned.
Wait a minute, which one?
Charlton Orchards, the marijuana.
Oh.
They denied site plan review.
They are.
They
site plan
did,
review,
they
yes.
denied it the first time.
Oh, really?
Already is on, yeah.
No.
Land court's already made its decision.
ready.
Hey,
All right.
But I'm not ready to do that.
All right, next thing is discussion, is possible vote, ASD Wallem Lake Solar LLC, Wallem Lake Road.
I'll keep that on the agenda until you decide you want to vote.
All right, let's go to the next thing.
Yeah, that's not good. All right, proposed acceptance, Deer Crossing, Woodland Road, and Stonegate.
Yeah, in your packet, I have a page that looks like this. It's got a number of shaded headings. And basically, that's the draft of where we're headed with the town meeting warrant articles that pertain to the planning board. You'll see there's a number of zoning bylaw changes. Actually, there's 4, I believe, that we're going to be pursuing, and we're looking at having the hearings for those on March 21st. So we'll be advertising, I'm sorry. Public hearing on 4/9, April 9th. We'll be advertising on April 2nd and March 26th for the 4 public hearings. We'll try to keep them all in that one night and just have it be a big public hearing zoning bylaw fest.
So
That should give us enough time to hold the public hearing, make a decision, and get it on
Plenty
the
of
town
time.
warrant.
You know, we pushed it back. We were originally targeting April 23rd, but in the event we continued one of them,
Yeah.
I moved it up, so it's April 9th.
All right, so we'll still be able to make the warrant.
Yeah, you know when the warrant closes?
The language for the warrant will be closed late March 2020-something. I don't have the exact date.
We can have the hearing after the warrant closes?
You can. We're having the hearing the soonest, let me put it this way, we're having the hearing the soonest we can with the advertising requirements.
Yeah, we have to notify the butters on
We're
something.
gonna, yeah,
So it's just,
it's the advertising that's driving it.
Can we just get clarification on that?
On what?
So they're gonna be putting these articles on the warrant, it's gonna close, it's gonna get voted on by
We've
selectmen.
already touched on,
Okay,
one of them's coming from the town clerk, that one stands as it is.
right.
We've got 3 others that we're looking at.
Boundaries. what we're changing
Yeah, the
there.
2 zoning boundaries, which I ran by you previously.
Yeah.
One from Economic Development, one from the Board of Selectmen.
Yep.
And the last one is something that I've been talking to the Economic Development Committee about. You might recall, we had an expedited permitting bylaw.
Yep.
That was
And-
for the wind farm.
It was for the wind farm and over at Pine Sand and Gravel.
Right, right.
So the changes that I'm going to be proposing through the EDC is drop the wind farm area, because that's all state forest now.
Yes, they took that, yeah.
And then we'll add some properties that are located in the industrial zone
Yeah.
between Granutech and Uxbridge.
Yep.
Okay. Can you
so
get-
did the town receive funds for that 43-day, those 2 sites specifically?
We did. Well,
I don't know,
we did.
or did we already use them?
We did.
But we could still place it in an expedited
Right.
zone.
I don't know
Area.
about that either.
Sure. you
That's
can.
the process?
Yeah.
And they're gonna give us additional money?
No.
No, it won't get us additional money.
What is this?
Need a pen that works. Okay, so we can have a public hearing after the warrant closes for the,
bylaw.
yeah, I know, because none of these pens work.
I know these pens.
And then you can change, we're thinking of changing 43D and getting additional money.
Changing 43D, no. What are you talking about additional money?
There's no
What is
additional
that?
money. Yeah.
So you're just designating the site?
It would
Yes.
become expedited permitting, and it would fall under our rules and regs for
Alright.
expedited
Okay,
permitting.
so typically the state gives those specific sites to work on those sites grant money to expedite the permitting. So the towns receive the money to do workshops.
There
or
was a program when the 43D
formed.
statute
Okay.
was first in existence.
Right, when it
And
first
we
came out.
qualified as one of the first towns to adopt 43D.
Right.
So we got $150,000 to design a subdivision road over on the northeast part of town. Which we did, we used, we spent, that's all gone.
Get it
Yeah, we have the
installed?
plan. and
No, we have 4 towns that it went through.
Oh,
that's
that
was
one,
that
okay.
four-town project,
Yeah.
We had water design, sewer design.
Road design.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's pretty significant.
And that's still a plan that exists.
We still have the plan. It is stale now.
Right, but-
Because it's not been recorded, even though it's been approved at 4 towns.
Right.
But that's what that money was used for, but that was it to get towns to adopt 43D.
Right.
Okay. 'Cause there is a list online of all the actual addresses, the 43D sites that
Right,
were
that's why we wanna
picked by
change
the
that.
state.
Yeah, there's
Right.
no reason to maintain the ones that the state acquired.
Yeah, right.
You know.
Right.
That was for the
When,
wind
yeah,
farm.
were they acquired?
After the.
Couple of years ago.
They took all that. land.
Whenever American Wind Pro,
Well, about-
Yeah.
It was like a couple of months after that,
Yeah.
I went to state forest.
In the state forest.
Yeah.
so those are the four zoning articles. And I don't think there's anything particularly exciting about them. I think they're fairly.
And Wildflower
fairly
Drive made it in with all their
I'm gonna
requirements.
get to that.
Oh, I thought you said nothing's exciting about it.
For the zoning bylaw changes.
Am I not on the
so-
right one?
In addition to
No, it's another.
to the zoning bylaw changes, there's a number of public ways that have been on the horizon of petitioning to be public ways. The ones where you see in the sheet that have a description, those particular subdivisions have submitted language to us to go to town meeting. We're still tweaking it. You'll see Article 22, Stonegate. I still have not gotten anything. So if anybody knows any of the parties involved with that project, please feel free to give them a little nudge.
Okay.
We need it as soon as possible.
These are all up to date.
Otherwise, it's not going to get accepted at this annual town meeting.
No.
And then lastly, of course, there's that little section of Darling Way that lied in the Pond Street subdivision section that got excluded when we adopted Darling Way as a public way.
Right.
So that's just a little 50 by 50 foot rectangle, literally, that we've got to do.
So what's the status of these? These are before us as far as road construction and satisfying?
We will be making a recommendation, assuming they follow through, get as-built, get road laid out and accepted with
Just
the
their
Board of
intent,
Selectmen.
but it has to come before us in order.
It has to come.
And through you. Yeah.
We have to make a recommendation at town meeting.
Right, right,
Town
yeah.
meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you're aware of the problem on Woodland with the excavator walking down
Yes,
the road.
Woodland has, they all have a problem.
Yeah, they all have problems, yeah.
Where's
Wildflower has some issues that they've got to finish.
Yeah.
Woodland has the excavator issue. Woodland's furthest along, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah, until the excavator walked down the hot top, it was
Stonegate, they got to clean out the detention ponds.
Yeah.
And the catch basins.
What's the problem at
Yeah,
the-
he did cut around, didn't he? He did cut the detention ponds, didn't he? That's them?
I haven't been out there.
Okay.
Usually they give me a call and say, hey, go
Yeah,
take a look.
he did, I took a ride out, yeah. It looks like he did clear all that small brush that we talked about when we
good.
when we went down there with him.
Okay.
So I don't know why he hasn't gotten back to you, but.
They did the top coat of paving, I'm
Yeah,
happy with
right,
that, so.
Right, okay.
To rank them, do you think Stonegate's the closest one?
No.
No, I think
Woodland Road.
Woodland's probably closest.
Okay, for approvals?
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
And there's no problem with the portion of Darling Way either, right? Unless you're waiting for the plan? Is that what you're waiting for?
Darling Way.
So you already knew about
Yeah,
that?
no,
The little piece?
we're picking up the 50-foot strip that was omitted in the written description that was deeded to the town last annual town meeting.
Okay.
I thought it was included.
Mm-hmm.
It was in all the documentation to be included. It was just wasn't in the deeded
Right.
description. So.
It is
so we
now.
So we have to go through, lay that 50-foot by 50-foot out. and
Okay.
take
So you
it from
can't
there.
use the same plan date?
You can.
same exact plan?
We don't need
Oh.
a new plan. We can
Why is
refer
it
to the plan.
XXX, triple X?
Because we're constructing this as we speak. I'm just updating you.
Yep.
It's not final. I will fill in those X's with numbers.
I figured you knew the numbers,
No,
right?
not
No?
yet. Not yet. I've
Not
been
yet.
focused on other things.
Oh. I'm
Solar
confused.
projects.
So will that become a separate little piece of town property? Or will it be
Well,
associated with Darling Way?
It'll be it'll be part of the public way. Right now, it's still a 50 by 50-foot strip adjacent to Pond
Yeah.
Street that goes to Darling Way. It is Darling Way, it's just private still.
Really wide, makes the way pretty wide. All right.
Board, any questions on those?
I have lots of questions, but
What are those X's?
Still in the works.
Yeah, no one knows.
it's our adult entertainment area that we're
XXX.
Don't bring that up.
implementing on Darling Way.
That makes sense.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Is there plans to put the solar into a zoning area? Just what Jay highlighted, into the industrial area?
That's discussion for us to bring up. before
That's for
we
you
bring it
guys
up.
to tell me to put it on the
I mean, you got
agenda.
plenty of time. You could add it. 'Cause they're closing the warrant on Just March 26th,
I always look
maybe?
to the fall. I never look to the spring.
Yeah, that's for normal business, not for zoning and use
Doesn't matter.
and land uses.
We'd have to
It
change
doesn't
the
matter. It's an
bylaw.
annual meeting.
Typically.
It's an annual
Yes.
meeting.
And the use tables and all
For
that
setting
stuff.
budget.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Meeting's a meeting. Okay. Cool.
Okay, next two things on the agenda are things we have to sign.
What did we decide, other than hoping that happens?
We're always hoping it happens.
Well, so we need to review that, right? This,
Oh,
I
the
put
renewal?
that together, I compiled it from a number of different towns and specific to the project. It was reviewed by the applicant as well as town council, and everybody is good with that. So the only thing I would add is, as I indicated tonight, with regard to the surety, that I had it in my initial draft, but it fell out between all the reviews. But regarding any of the sureties that we require it be a Massachusetts firm. So I would ask that you put that back in on, let's see which conditions there are.
We still on town meeting?
No, we're on the
What the hell are we on?
Douglas Renewal LLC.
and also that's stormwater, the maintenance fee, he was saying 400 to 800 would be maintained for stormwater.
No,
Best
that's
management
their
practices.
fee.
Yeah.
The intent of,
Where'd you put it?
well, we have a condition that they have to
Maintain it.
maintain it in accordance with their operation and maintenance plan,
Okay,
regardless of what the cost is.
Yep.
okay. But they didn't have to tell us. They just had to
Well,
give
I
us
have
a
conditions in here
OMP.
that say that we can go out and inspect, and if they're not maintaining it, we can require maintenance.
Okay.
Was there,
I was telling her to lean towards the higher number. That's-
was
But I guess it doesn't really matter.
No.
removal of the land from 61A to?
Yeah, okay, let's back up. I'm structuring this to try and come up with a good model, okay? And it's a work in progress. So let's jump into page 4, if you want. I can run through the general conditions. Number 12.
Yep.
Prior to commencement of any activity associated with the approved project, the applicant shall submit to the planning board an emergency procedure protocol which has been endorsed by the town of Douglas Fire Chief and Police Chief. Unless exception is made, the rights granted through this permit shall lapse if not exercised by substantial use or substantial construction being commenced within 2 years. And then I have a specific date. Then I have a bunch of prior to issuance of a building permits. Applicant shall provide documentation to the town of Douglas that all parties are not in or have been removed from any Chapter 61 designations. All then due property taxes have been paid, including rollback taxes, and all properties are free and clear of any covenants or building restrictions. Now, that may not necessarily apply to this project, but I think it's one that likely may be on some other projects.
Yeah.
Why the 2 years or within 2 years commencement?
It's standard, well, special permits usually are 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, that's why I was wondering why too.
Well, I don't think you want to get in the practice of having an approval shelved and be good indefinitely.
Right.
Yeah, but
They can request an extension.
Correct, but I think when we were talking about the South Street project, you know, Jay mentioned that an approved South Street project, the
Green, evergreen.
Evergreen,
Oh, okay.
yeah, that an approved plan is approved site and approved plan. And then if they wanted to come back with another approval for another project on that same site, the applicant would have the decision of weighing which one they want to move forward.
I mean, if you guys don't like the decision, I think it's a reasonable condition.
I think there's no problem with that.
Yeah.
I got no problem with it.
No,
2
just,
years.
huh?
2 years.
And they can extend it if they want.
Yeah. I mean, it's lousy when you have stuff sitting on the shelf forever. If something can't happen within 2 years, or start in 2 years, then there's a problem.
Sometimes, for example, I know of projects that are currently not constructed, Evergreen on South Street,
Evergreen, yeah.
where between the date they filed and the date that they got their approval, they the stormwater regulations changed significantly and had a big impact on that project, so, anyways,
Well, Williams,
I'll move it along.
yeah, but Williams
hate
Estate
stormwater
was another one that
talk.
didn't have a time frame on that site plan.
That wasn't a site plan, that was a
got me.
flexible development special permit, which is valid for only 2 to 3 years. And it also was a subdivision, a definitive subdivision, so they did come, if this is my recollection, they came back for a couple of extensions on that project
Yeah.
from the board.
Bill, the question on 17, I mean, on decommissioning, just to educate us, me, whatever. I saw $35,000 per megawatt.
That's what I've seen in the other decisions, but where I'm leaning towards, and it's reflected in this decision, we're going to hire an outside consultant that knows this type of work, that's going to do an estimate, so that we'll carry that number for the value.
But in 17, it speaks of only removing the panels in the apparatus. It doesn't, there's no language, and maybe, I don't know, towards restoration of trees or some per
Okay.
acre. I think it has to be in there. You just can't, I don't know, but I'm just saying, if they decommission the place, whether
Yeah.
it's any project,
Yep.
they need to plant some stuff back. You can't just depend on weeds growing back.
We also gotta remember, it's privately owned property. So if the landowners wanna work something out, that should be between the landowners and them, not so much the
I think the
town.
purpose of the decommissioning is not restoration as much as it is getting rid of the materials
That are there.
Correct. I think Jay touched
Yeah, he
upon
did
that
mention that.
he had some language around that.
Right.
That you'd be great to review with him.
So you're saying that, like I heard
I'm
you
not
say-
saying you can't do it, Aaron.
Right.
I'm saying that typically decommissioning would be just removal and disposal of the,
Well, it just seems to me,
Unless it's a dust
Right.
bowl
and
or
just say we
something.
take this project, for instance, over here, and the 30 acres goes away.
well, assuming they built it properly, it would be loamed and seeded as called for on the plans.
Right, but it would, okay, I'm just saying that, you're left with this nothingness, well, it'll turn into a grassy field, and there'll be some deer out there, and some guys will have some fun.
Right.
But
Right. I
still.
mean, it's that fine line where you're stepping on, at least the way I'm looking at it. Like I said, it's privately owned property, somebody owns it. Not you, I, or the town, somebody else does. So
Oh, I
if they wanna
understand.
wo-
No, I
If
want-
they wanna work it out where,
Yep.
when it's decommissioned, they go in and redo stuff, that's their deal.
Oh, I wanted to ask the question, I mean, they could go in, they could put a pond in, they could have ducks in there, they could put a farm there or whatever.
But they
right?
couldn't unless they went through all the boards again to do
Right.
that. The decommissioning would just involve the removing all the panels, the steel.
But to the
metals.
point of your point of it's private.
Right.
It reverts back, it's under a lease likely, the private people can do whatever they want.
Whatever they want.
But
yeah.
it's under the review of this board, so you can talk about it. It's
You
not
can.
just that
Right.
it's a given that it's personal property and they get to do whatever they want. No, they can't because they're here.
Part of
They can't
Part of the
exactly-
decommissioning
Yeah.
is going to disturb the ground, pulling
Yeah.
out posts and
Yeah.
stuff like.
Well, then
putting
it
in there
should
doing,
say,
so There's going to be some,
Pylons in the concrete or
Oh,
whatever
my
else.
God.
Yeah,
And
so
it says speaks nothing to the land. This bylaw, I mean, the 17 decommissioning
Yeah.
is
Right.
only to panels and metal structures,
Right,
apparatus.
right.
It speaks nothing to planting seed,
right, you still want to make sure
restoration.
there's not going to be erosion
So,
and all that.
I
Right.
think we gotta have something in there, even if it ends up with grasslands, it's better than just a wash away with no planting of seeds and just something to protect.
What do you want?
But I don't know what Jay has.
Something.
I think.
Something.
Whatever Jay just did
Yeah.
for that other place,
Right.
we want
Yeah, Jay's
that.
been writing that.
Something that makes,
reviewed this.
something that guarantees that there's not going to be erosion in stormwater
At a minimum. very-
runoff and stuff
How
because of
about
the
I just
decommissioning.
generally put and site restoration?
That's
Okay?
good.
That-
something
well,
anyway.
could have-
That's a fair term, Bill.
Yeah, that's good.
Site restoration.
Document
and-
the,
and, I don't know, vegetative, whatever.
Returning it back to.
I mean, as
the
part of this,
previous use.
I mean, you
Oh,
could
we still
have
have
them
that?
give you a
I didn't
plan that
realize we were
shows
specific. Yeah, yeah.
decommissioning.
It was up
You could require that.
That's what we could get
No,
that from that.
yeah, like a drawing that shows what they're going to do, and you guys can review it
That's
and
it.
approve it.
Yeah,
So it
maybe
could
they-
have,
they loam and
30-foot
seed
pine
and
trees
put
or whatever you want.
2-inch saplings every, 15 feet on center, and they just start a forest back and,
I don't know if you can do that, because it's private property. We just want to guarantee that there's not going to be erosion in stormwater runoff and stuff. We want to make sure the area is to restoration so that it's safe.
How do you
But
know
we can't
people that
require
own
private.
land,
I don't disagree with that, what you said.
say they
they
want,
do a
once it's all gone, say they want to put up a barn and have it a field for cattle.
Yeah, they could
Now
do
you're s- now you're
No,
saying
it could
you
be,
gotta plant a
hey,
tree.
grasslands are perfectly
So it's-
acceptable.
No trees, no extra trees,
I have no
please.
problem if it was decommissioned.
Just enough so that there's not damage to the property. Restoration.
Well, put that in as a minimum, that's fine.
On-site restoration, got it.
But speak to vegetation of some sort of grass. and
Yeah, that would-
something.
Restoration is- and
Erosion control.
stabilization and erosion control.
Erosion control.
There you go.
And just put grass seed in or something.
All fuzzy.
Stabilization, erosion control.
Right.
That'd be good.
You want a couple of rabbits to hide it.
It doesn't sound like conservation.
There'll be plenty of holes for
That's because rabbits bring hawks, and hawks bring,
Mike, he wants to
It's a
add
cycle of
rabbits
life, right?
to the
Any other
restoration
shines?
plan.
It's almost Easter.
No.
Restoration, stabilization, erosion protection.
Okay.
All right, well.
All right, any others, Bill?
Yeah, basically, we had the condition that they had to enter into a pilot with the selectmen.
Yep.
And it's got to be approved. Provide a proof of a driveway opening permit and surety in case they damage the road.
Okay.
Obviously decommissioning, as we mentioned.
Are you calculating that surety?
Do you have
for the
surety?
road?
No, we're sending this, well, the one for the damage, we usually have a set fee, I want to say it's
Okay.
10 grand.
Is the whole West Street? Or just like in front of it?
Anytime there's damage to the
Just
road.
going in and out of there. Yeah.
Oh, the equipment offloading,
Okay.
someone's bringing an excavator.
So,
Out of that project.
stormwater, we're having a surety. We're going to have the consultant select an amount to establish for surety associated with stormwater in the event that there is a stormwater issue.
So surety for everybody, right, is a matter of monies that are put aside, a bond or some
Could
sort
be
of way.
bond, could be cash, could be
That's
a
put aside
tripartite
to
agreement.
fix things that, before they get their building permit, that we call a building permit, whether it's solar or a building or whatever, right?
Yeah.
That fixes things, right? That if they don't do it right, or they don't decommission something right.
Right.
There's monies there, put aside.
Correct. And usually they have an agreement, a formal agreement that says when you can access it and when what the obligation is.
Right, so this is all written before the release of a permit to do this. This is all.
Before they pull a
An
building
agreement is
permit,
made,
yes.
okay.
Signage has to be in place before a building permit. The specific equipment has to be provided to the building department. Then we get into our standard nuisance conditions.
And he looks real good though.
I added under noise, no pile driving, post installation, or other excessively loud activities are permitted prior to 8 AM or after 4 PM.
Right, right.
Vibration, traffic, roads, I added stormwater,
Yeah.
so just review that.
I haven't seen it, Bill, yet. For going further on these, we're gonna set up specific sites like for fueling of vehicles.
I can add that.
stuff like-
I
You know
I
how,
currently don't have that.
like,
Concom
all
has it.
sites shall have a designated
Yeah,
fueling
Concom,
area?
Concom has it
Yeah.
as a requirement for the
you?
owner, yeah. Specific site, but yeah, if it'll
It'd be good
be
then to
addressed on the
match.
plan, yeah.
Or
we should
under this on the
Mirror
plan?
that, yeah.
Yeah,
Do we get to 25 yet?
I think that'll be good.
No,
Moving
22.
right
You
along.
said somewhere else about hours of operation, I think that was 7 to 4 or something.
Yeah, but 6:30 for idling.
It says no heavy activity till 8 to 4.
Yeah, I put, I did narrow the window for loud and obnoxious activity. Not by much, but
But yeah, that's fine.
yeah.
So can I ask a question about hours? Because it's pretty clear that equipment may not be started and idle before 6:30 AM, but is that just between November 15th and April 1st? Does that mean that?
You gotta talk to Mike Zwicker.
No,
Cold weather startup.
No, I just
weather
wanted to,
only.
I wanted to be written correctly for you.
Yeah.
So April 2nd, they can't idle till 7 AM.
Correct.
If somebody complains about it, then we'll know about it. If they don't, then we
Right,
won't.
but is that what this means, Mike?
That's
I'm
the way, yeah.
I'm trying to pay attention to what you're saying
Yeah.
here.
Can't be
so-
like the guy down the street from you at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, geez. On the lake with the big drill out on the lake, the auger.
Drilling in the lake.
5:45 AM with the auger and the ice.
Access gate, Knox box or similar. Yep, we're on page 6 of 10.
Dentist visiting.
Vibration.
Bill, vibration and
Access
stuff like
gate.
that, if there's, you got the driving of a pylon and stuff like that, right? So there is the disturbance of that. Is there any sureties related to that?
I don't know what
I
sure.
mean, they're only going in a couple feet.
Yeah.
I mean, they go drill
For
Yeah, but they're putting in
patients,
10 million of these things,
a,
you know?
so, they go drill a 300-foot
This
hole
one is
next to
like
my house, putting in
1,000
a
feet
well.
away.
Huh?
Closest
No,
house
they're
is
doing
like
it.
1,000, 2,000 feet away.
And
That one guy.
what are they going down, 3 feet?
But it's 8, but it's 8 AM for that. for any
Yeah.
kind of work like that.
Okay.
All right. And the whole point of all those is H, okay?
Yep.
The complaints.
Yep.
And if we get repeated, ongoing complaints,
We have something.
then we have a chance to intervene,
Fair enough.
okay?
Do they know? We're not talking about their project.
Yes.
They know that.
Yeah.
Okay, number 25, the fence. 6 feet in height and have warning signs posted at least every 100 feet.
And that was gonna be a specific one with the
Lightning
bracket things.
bolts.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, are you
The
talking about
privacy
the?
fence.
oh.
For a certain
screening?
portion, yeah,
Yeah,
and putting slats
instead
in it.
of the, yeah.
With the
So
slats.
you're gonna have
Instead
slats,
of, like-
it's a hidden fence, okay, so
Yeah,
you're putting slats in the chain link
for
fence?
the abutter.
They are on one
Was
side.
it noted,
Yes,
was it
it-
noted
Yeah,
on
it's
the
on
plan?
It's on the plan.
It's on the plan.
Bill, what's a sign every 100
Okay.
feet? Is high voltage? I don't know, I mean, I'm thrown off
What
by
does
a
the
sign
sign
every 100
say?
feet. Don't know,
What
no
does it warn you
trespassing?
about?
It's a warning, yeah.
Yeah, it's
private property, stay out.
warning,
That's what-
high voltage,
don't know,
whatever.
That's what I mean. I just
Yeah.
see the word signage and
Do
not,
not enter.
I mean, that's why I was just
The
wondering.
drawings have the sign,
Okay,
so this really gets to the frequency of the sign.
okay. Perfect.
And I just wanna make sure that that person gets the, privacy fencing, like we had discussed. Was there
Yeah.
a detail?
The Bloom side,
It was a
yeah.
detail, and it showed it on the plans.
Okay.
Not only was there a detail, but it was also shown on the plans along that one section.
Right,
Okay,
right.
all right.
Yep.
Number 26, it says 1 year after. Can it just be until operation or till, I mean, it says 1 year. What happens if they don't finish in 1 year? The reports, just saying.
Hold on. Go ahead.
I jumped.
When we're
26.
after.
26,
Yeah.
so 1 year after the mechanical completion.
Yeah, what about if it's 1 year and 2 months? They still should file reports till they're complete with the project, right? Should it be a date or performance base? It could be 9
Until
months.
completion?
Till completion, right.
Until completion,
Or accepted completion, or whatever that
yeah.
standard is.
Say it again, I'm not
Well,
getting it.
number 26 says, after the building permit is issued and until 1 year after mechanical completion. Oh, after the mechanical completion of the array.
Yes,
So they'll still do reports after the mechanical
Yes.
completion.
For a
Fine,
year.
fine, got
Yes.
it, got it.
For a
It's all
year.
set.
the
year.
concern for me is stormwater.
Right,
Yep.
Right, got it.
so,
Okay.
Yep.
It's all set, move on, so.
Okay. 27, emergency contact information posted on the premises. Should we say on the front fence?
It's usually on the front fence, as well as,
Front fence.
and you have it with the, updated with the fire department and building department.
And I want to add something that if ownership or contacts transfer, that has to be updated.
You want to say almost like a yearly,
Should-
something like that? That's what I've seen in other towns.
Okay. Motion detection emergency lighting to be available for emergency calls during overnight hours. Stumps that are encountered created from site construction activities shall be removed from the ground unless otherwise noted in approved site plans and ultimately removed from the site.
I have something with that.
That they're grinding
Hold
on
on a
site.
second. Burial of any stumps or other wood debris on site is prohibited. Now, this is originating from one of our standard conditions. She reviewed that and indicated that they were planning on keeping the stumps on site.
Well, some do and some don't, but I have no problem with coming in with a stump grinder either.
I thought
So
that's
tell
what
me
they-
what you want.
All right, so you can remove, they can remove them from site, and/or stumps must be ground.
But they can't remain on site,
Once they're
say
ground, the
stockpile.
chips.
as a stockpile.
Can't stockpile stumps.
Yeah, you can't leave the stumps
I
there.
thought they
can't
were
stop
gonna
it,
have a
yeah.
huge grinder on site.
Well, that's
I
what he
thought
wants
that
to
was
have.
their game plan.
Yeah.
Then
chip.
let's put it as a condition.
That-
The condition can be, they can remove them, or they can grind them.
And no
But no
stockpile.
stockpiling of stump material on
Or
site.
burial.
Or brush or
Yeah.
anything like that.
Because that was one they objected to, that condition,
Which one? I think that's a.
the one that we just talked about.
Removal,
Removal.
because they want to grind on site. Because either they can pull the stumps.
They can grind, I don't have a problem with that.
They can grind them, or a lot of them can pull the
I don't want a
stumps.
pile of stumps.
And they bring in the big tub
That would be
grinder.
Okay.
weird.
So
Yeah, I
go
thought it
either
was
way.
a tub grinder.
Yeah, because then you
But they
got
mentioned
Fisher
that.
Cat in there.
Okay, number 30.
Right.
Stump
You
food.
don't like this one less? Use of hazardous materials as defined by the MCP 310 CMR 40 in the operation of the solar facility shall be prohibited. Likewise, grass, ground cover areas within the fenced area along its perimeter shall be low-growing or regularly mowed. I mixed up 31 and 32. Use of herbicides and/or pesticides or chemical treatment of the lawn areas on site are expressly prohibited unless previously approved by the board. The stormwater O&M plan is referenced and made part of this decision. The applicant shall permit the board or its agent to inspect the premises on a reasonable notice to determine compliance with the O&M plan. The applicant shall maintain access to the site until completion of decommissioning. In the event of a storm, the applicant shall clear access for emergency response vehicles within 48 hours of conclusion of the storm. The applicant shall maintain a review and inspection account with the town in accordance with 53E.5 and 53G as appropriate. And then we get into the occupancy permit. So all of these are prior to the issuance of an occupancy permit. Applicant shall coordinate a site walkthrough with safety officials in the town to provide a written emergency response plan to the fire chief and police chief. That seems a little redundant from the earlier one. But I will check that. You guys get the gist.
Yeah,
That's good, leave it there.
Okay. Applicant must provide the array's effective operations and maintenance plan, inclusive of contact information to the planning board and building inspector. Commercially sensitive information may be redacted. Changes in contact information for site response or operations and maintenance must be updated, and notice sent to the planning board and building inspector within 30 days. Applicant shall inform in writing the Douglas Planning Board and Building Inspector of any changes to the installed equipment prior to the equipment being altered or replaced. But after the facility construction has been completed, a site walk shall be organized with the town safety personnel to familiarize them with the layout and operation. The approved facility landscaping shall be installed and certified by a Massachusetts landscape architect to meet the requirements of the approved plan as applicable. The term applicant shall refer to the current applicants or its assignees, successors, affiliates, subsidiaries, and any other entity related thereto. Any sale, transfer, or assignment of the permit other than an assignment of the permit to the mortgagee pursuant to financing, and any sale of more than 50% of the assets and interest in the applicant shall require board approval, such approval not to be unreasonably withheld. Yeah.
So, you're on 42? No?
Well, I thought you had a question.
I
have a
did when you get to
question.
42.
Oh, okay. This permit shall expire if the construction is not commenced, 3 years.
See,
Okay,
what I'm
that's a
saying?
contradiction. Yeah.
That's where I wanted to
Yeah.
have those two tied together, so they're using the same term of 3 years. You follow me, number 12?
Yeah.
actually, yeah, number 13, sorry, number 13 and number 42, to use the same timeline period.
Well, that's fine. I mean,
That's where I came
I'm
with.
just putting this together on the fly.
Yeah, no.
But
That way an applicant doesn't get confused.
which one would the board like to go with?
2 years.
The
Two.
2 years for number 13 as well as number 42.
Yeah, 2 is better than 3.
So keep them both at 2 years.
Yeah, as long as they're
So
consistent.
we'll
is the
have
key.
both at 2. Okay?
Yeah, that's the big thing. With any-
Then we list the waivers,
I got a big 2.
and then we have the big X's. So you can either sign tonight, there are 2 copies, I'll make the edits.
So the other thing would be, go ahead, Mike.
Oh, that's one thing with COMCOM. I know you have set up for fueling.
Yeah.
Was there something in your COMCOM design where you blow a hydraulic line or diesel spill on site or something like that for
Like a spill
notification?
kit? Notification?
Or readiness.
As far as or proper cleanup?
No.
You
I know the fueling
'cause you know, and
areas, I know the
you blow a
parking
hydraulic line,
areas.
You can dump 50 gallons in a millisecond. You know what I mean? And so that it's not just buried under the dirt? Or should we have something in writing where?
They're required, if it's over 10 gallons, they're required to report it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're supposed
State law.
I
Yeah,
thought
state
it
law,
was.
yeah.
So just leave that one alone?
I mean,
Don't have to worry about it?
if on an inspection you find something and they're in big trouble. If they spill over 10 gallons, the state law
They're
requires
supposed
that they.
But does everybody know
notify,
that?
yeah.
Every one of those drivers and every, you think?
Yeah, but I would think, you know, if they're not going to tell the state, they're not going to tell you.
Right.
Right, you have to be there when
Right.
it happens.
So it isn't bad having, writing, even though it may be redundant, put it in writing somewhere, easy enough.
No, if it's state law, it's state law. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, most of them should know it's state law. Most people that are in that business know what the law is. and
Yeah.
If they ever spill, they have to report it.
Yeah.
So the other thing is,
Can you guarantee them to report it? I don't know how you could guarantee them to report it, but
you get a fine, right, if they fine you, if they
yeah,
find
on an inspection,
something.
somebody finds something and
Yeah.
reports it, then they can,
Yeah.
but they'll be in big trouble. Then they'll
Follow
fine so
it.
much, you know, you're getting fined then, you're getting.
Unless they're trying to get into Harvard or Oxford and they'll do it that way.
Yeah.
Did you mention reasonable access, site access for officials and
did.
for board
I
members?
think it's in there.
Did I miss that number?
Where was,
It must have been in the beginning.
I think it was about notices.
I think it's under nuisance, hold on.
23. What issue? Allows access.
Well, here we go, under E, traffic. The applicant shall implement necessary traffic safety controls to ensure safe and convenient vehicular access in and around the site. Any traffic issues that occur as a result of site operations and construction shall be mitigated immediately
member.
at the expense of the applicant. Additional traffic mitigation measures may be required as necessary or as directed by the planning agent. Applicant shall ensure safe and convenient vehicular access to the project site during the entire duration of the project. Any board member or representative shall be permitted access to the project site for the duration of the project, provided that notice is given to the site construction foreman upon arrival. No parking or queuing of vehicles will be allowed on the adjacent public way during the construction period. If deemed necessary by the building inspector, a traffic director will be provided by the applicant to manage traffic on the adjacent public way.
So you
Okay,
can go
should
there, you
that
can't
be
just
as
park on the street.
a sub of access, not necessarily traffic?
We could.
This is,
You can do whatever you
It doesn't
want.
seem like it's related to traffic. I would say more like, say, somebody is complaining about something. So you want to have reasonable access to the site with all that stuff that you just said. I thought we had something
It's good to have a
under our
complaint.
standard, okay, under our
Yeah, you put that
standard
covered already.
boilerplate. I don't know if it, I don't
No,
know
I
if
think
it
that's
fits
where it is.
under traffic.
These things have grown.
Yeah,
and,
and they're like added. And then the other thing was that requirement for occupancy permit for the approved facility landscaping.
Yep,
What landscaping did we have? And we
didn't.
we waived, huh?
We didn't.
So why do we have that?
That's why we added comma as required.
Because boilerplate, we're trying to get
Okay.
it narrowed down.
yep,
Okay.
cool.
Okay. Anybody else? Have any questions?
I went through this.
Good, Bill. Good job, Bill.
Now, I want to, again, say I'm still reviewing the other towns and, and may massage this as we move forward.
Looking good, though.
Does that mean we should sign this or not sign it tonight if you're still?
That's up to the
massaging?
board. I can either make the edits that we discussed, so you have that level of comfort and confidence in signing, or you can sign the signature page and say, you've been so instructed.
I get to abstain.
That's right.
Not even
I mean,
abstain.
I get to abstain.
I think it's important. You don't need, there's no pressure to sign it.
Right.
So
Are
I
we
think
gonna
it's
sign
important
this,
to
like
review
we
it,
normally do, official
Review the
copy that comes
conditions.
by and...
We have.
especially if we think
Yeah,
of something or if
yeah,
I
we've
read
We've had
another.
decisions where you told me,
decision.
hey,
No.
change this, do that,
Yeah.
you sign it, and we'll
Massage it.
make the edits.
Okay.
We did make an edit.
Massage away.
Yeah, we can wait.
I'm massaging.
I love
Actually,
massages.
don't say that anymore.
That's kind of.
That sounds creepy.
As long as you, hey, as long as you craft it well.
Thank you.
Fine tune it.
He didn't get
And
that.
when is when's a third-party consultant going to calculate these amounts for surety?
I'm
At what
soliciting prices
stage?
now.
So that wouldn't be bad to have in the decision.
I'm soliciting prices now so that we can hit the ground running once the decision is signed.
Okay. Then the other one we already voted on, the
Oh,
1
that's
year
three different, are we just getting,
extension.
We get 3 prices.
Yeah.
We'll pick somebody.
if we get three?
Yeah.
All right, pine, sand, and stone, that's just the next one we have to sign, that's all set to go.
What's that?
Pine, sand, and stone, the ones on your
Yes,
extension?
that's already discussed and everything.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Just sign
remember that. That
away.
was last time.
And anybody from the audience would like to speak.
All right,
Is it new business?
then it's
No.
time to go back to
Open session.
ASD Wallem Lake
No, we
Solar.
don't need to vote for that. We don't need to vote.
We don't need to, we're gonna, we're
mean
not
we don't
voting on
need
that
to vote?
tonight. Still,
I'm sorry?
we don't, how many days, we don't have to vote on that tonight legally, right?
You don't.
No.
Right.
I think Jay's gonna do some homework and stuff like that and review
Yeah.
things. So,
I don't know if he's coming back on this or not. Well, he did, he said maybe you'd talk to Bill and
yeah.
get...
No, I'm confused here. What do you mean we
Yeah.
don't have to vote on it tonight?
I'm ready to vote on that tonight.
Jay's not doing any more work on it.
Nope.
We had him come in and explain to us what site plan review is,
I agree.
what our options are. The applicant is,
Okay, so the bylaws read, "The planning board shall review and act upon the site plan which conditions may be deemed appropriate within 90 days of the public hearing date." And note, public hearing date, now, that includes the entire public hearing, so not necessarily the date we started, but the public hearing is,
You mean when it was
The time
closed?
frame.
When it was,
and notify the applicant of its decision.
yeah,
The decision of the planning board shall be upon a majority of those present and shall be in writing.
is that present or those that have been on during the whole time? We have more present than we have.
If you're not here, you can't vote.
Right, but I want to know, I get that, but if a member, as we were told, was not present during all of the or a certain percentage, so it says here.
He's abstaining.
Abstaining from that decision and vote. Due to the Mullen rules and stuff like
Right,
that.
yeah.
So I've already talked to Jay about it. Just to confirm, we're all three of us were in agreement.
Yeah.
So where are we at the 90 days? Are we over 90 days?
I haven't
Make a
calculated.
decision.
No, I haven't calculated it, but we're well within 90 days
Oh,
of the
okay.
public hearing date.
So what do we have left on time on that?
You sure?
I'm sure.
I thought it was like December.
No, it's not that.
No, the public hearing date spans the public hearing. So it's not just the advertised date of the opening, it's the public hearing. So it's the last day of the public hearing.
Public hearing.
The last
That's,
day.
Last
okay,
one.
that's what,
Correct.
You
That
mean when
starts
it was
your clock.
closed?
Correct. When you close it, then you start
Which
your
was
clock.
just last 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
Yeah, correct.
Correct.
So we have
I'm sorry.
2 weeks less 90 days.
Yeah.
No, less 90 days, less 2 weeks.
Yeah. Correct.
So we got 2.5 months.
I've never known us to exercise that option in all the years I've been on this board when we,
It came up once before, and we ran that by town council previously. That's the only reason I'm confident in it.
is somebody on this board not ready to vote tonight? Well, you can't vote anyway. Of the voting people that are on this board.
Think about
is-
the conditions that we're gonna put on here.
I'd
If we
like to
can't
see the
deny it,
conditions.
yeah,
Have we got those conditions
I-
crafted, like this?
no,
No, I'm not going to draft it until I know how the vote comes.
yeah.
We gotta vote first.
What conditions are we voting
I said
on?
no.
Same
we agree with-
conditions that we do for, it just went over with this one.
Right.
I thought Jay said he wanted to, did I misunderstand that? He was gonna do something with you, or touch base with you, or run something by you, or?
No,
No, that was for the private ways.
Yeah.
But I think that was for the solar as well.
He said something
He
about
said
solar.
about decommissioning and
Oh,
stuff
no,
like
no.
that.
Oh,
Oh, well, yeah,
That's decommissioning.
that's
But I
process.
think there was,
Well, we've already done 2 of them, and he's done the same thing. It's the same boilerplate that he's done for the last 2.
well, do we put it to the applicant? I mean, is the applicant
Not
mandate?
the applicant, no.
No, let me see.
Nope.
No, it's strictly on the board. So not ready to vote tonight?
I asked if anybody was not ready to vote tonight.
Yeah, and I
I'm
said
ready.
no.
Okay.
Okay, so nobody
Yeah,
else.
so,
I mean, you can't really pull the board either.
I don't think I can
No.
I don't think I can fairly vote tonight. That's the problem.
Yep.
I have to sort of exercise my consciousness and see whether or not I'm prepared, because, you know, likely this is going to be upon a couple of us to swing it one way or the other, possibly, without any discussion with anyone else, and I think it's too important and too imperative to sort of, if I'm not prepared, I don't know.
So you want to wait another week, another meeting, or?
I would like
two,
to.
or-
Digest.
Yeah, that's what,
digesting
you
still?
know, what are we, in 2 weeks?
Worked as a month.
That's why you have 90 days.
Yeah. So you have 90 days, you're digesting all the facts and all the information.
So I think we, you know, I don't think we need to get it off our docket, or it's responsibility of us to, you know, move it along if we don't feel we're ready to particularly move it along, and call it a, you know, a reflection or consciousness or something, but I just can't move it tonight myself personally. But everybody else, you can do whatever you want, just.
I'd pass over and move to review the minutes. Mike, do you have the minutes, right?
I-
Well, it's not like the food pantry ran out of food, and we
Yeah.
gotta pass some money for tonight to
Yeah.
give the food
Gotta
pantry
go with the
food.
minutes.
I looked
You know,
at
it's
it.
not like,
Are we gonna do that now and forget about,
the food pantry?
I guess we're not, okay, so, all right. I didn't find anything wrong with the minutes. If anybody wants
Last
to
meeting?
take a chance to look at them, we'll put them off, or if not, I'll make a motion to,
and I'll second that motion, Mike.
okay.
At least that's
Make a
done.
motion to
Meeting
approve
minutes,
the
all right.
meeting minutes
26th.
as written for February 26th, 2019.
Yeah,
Mike.
all right, I mean,
Mike Z, second.
Go ahead, no, go, Ernie, please, say what you're gonna say, because you're the chair.
this
and
project's
you've
been
got
going on for a
experience.
while.
Yeah.
We brought Jay in tonight to explain to us exactly what we can and can't do. I'm not in favor of delaying it any further, but if some people are uncomfortable with voting, if you want to stay, you want to think about it for another 2 weeks, I'm not in favor of that, but that's fine. We're going to have to make a vote sooner or later. If you think 2 more weeks is going to make it more comfortable, I will be the one who makes the deciding vote. There's 6 of you, need a majority.
He's abstaining.
All right, all right.
So there's not gonna be a tie.
There could be.
Tie. There could be a tie. I will be
But a tie
I
is-
will be the deciding vote if that weighs heavy on anybody's mind.
But
It's
a
up to me.
tie is a defeat, right? We need majority, right? We need
You need
4 to 2?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he
It
would
cannot
be
be 3 to
the-
3, it cannot be,
Yeah.
it has to be 4 to 2. So,
If we were a jury deliberating behind closed doors on a criminal case, you know, it's like, what? Bill, what
First
happens
Perry
if there is a
Mason, I
tie?
really need them.
Well, then Ernie's not gonna vote. He's just indicated that if it comes out that he'd be creating a tie, it's his prerogative to not vote.
Which makes sense.
If there's a tie, I break the tie. It's up to the board. If you think you need another 2 weeks, which
We've already made, we've
I'm
already
ready to
said
vote.
what the opinion was.
I don't think another 2 weeks is gonna make
We've
that.
hammered it enough. I mean, we talked about it, and talked about it.
Well, if you want to push me to it, then I'll make a vote tonight, and then that's where it's going to lay with me.
No, it's not gonna lay with you, it's laying with me. Whatever you vote, I'm not gonna be the tiebreaker.
2 weeks.
Okay.
I'm the guy that makes the tiebreakers, so.
I have no objection to him taking
It's up to
another
what you
2
wanna do,
weeks.
board.
Yeah, so that, Michael, you're saying you have no objection, but if they want to move the vote, then they lay where it lays, you know? So,
Okay.
I think there's too much at stake here both ways.
I don't know.
What about our motion to do the minutes?
It was seconded.
I already seconded
Second, well,
it.
do we all in
We didn't
favor?
vote.
No.
All in
Ernie's
favor of the
need to
meeting
call
minutes?
it.
Let's get that out of the way.
Opposed, abstain?
Abstain.
Motion carries, meeting minutes are passed.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay. Oh, God.
Well, I mean, I'm with you, Ken, and, you know, I'm ready to vote, but if we need to wait one more meeting, then I think we should wait. But next meeting, we gotta do something. Can't drag on no more.
Right, I would say that. Okay.
That's the way I look at it.
And I don't see anybody making a motion
I have
to,
to go to church twice between now and then. So that's it.
I'm gonna hold off on that, you know. I'm gonna hold off. I know.
we'll take another crack at it in 2 weeks.
I understand. I mean, it's not my decision to tell you guys
Yeah.
how
No,
we're
no,
going
it's
to do
not.
it.
He's not even
Right.
supposed to
Just
speak.
watching.
We get that. We
Myself
appreciate
personally,
that.
I'm ready, but if the
Yeah.
board wants 2 more weeks to think about it, then we'll give everybody time to,
I mean, obviously, I love the things to move
Well-
forward, but I like also getting yes votes, so.
Well, I wanted to just,
Happy
you
to-
know,
yeah.
legal counsel come in tonight. We just got his information and his feedback, and I
And
think
we
I
have 90
need,
days.
and I think I want
That
to
is
take
the
time to
rule.
reflect on that, and yeah,
that's
that's all.
fine, Eric, that's fine.
Yeah, thank you.
I have no problem with that.
It makes sense. We asked Jay to come in.
Right.
I have no problem.
It opens it up that he can review the
Anybody
video
here?
as well.
Right, we'll do
Can-
it at the next meeting.
I
We're
have a-
gonna do it at the next meeting, though.
I have a question. Can there
days
be
will be
minutes
up.
that come out before, so we can see them before the next meeting, so we can review? Is any minutes reflecting on what Jay has said?
The tape will be up.
Tonight's
The
meeting,
video will
Well, there'll be the
up.
video. I can go
be
back.
the video, and there'll be.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And the
Yeah,
PA system
Barry,
is
can you get
working.
these minutes to us quick?
You gotta,
Taken care of.
our deadline's gonna be up at the next meeting. You gotta realize that one thing, that you have to be here for the next meeting. You can't call and say, I'm not showing up.
Cancel my-
Everybody has to be here.
So you're
Understand
telling
that?
me the.
You don't have to be.
Is that a true statement? That the deadline is,
You can skip.
the next, is that a true statement?
Well, it's gonna be the 90 days, so that's another month. That's,
No, you still got time.
It's
2.5 months, supposedly.
You still got 2.5
I
months.
just want to clarify so that we're not misspeaking on
Hey, when-
timelines and time to act.
when did you say it was up, Phil? You didn't say.
I read the bylaw.
Yeah, you said it was 90 days.
It says 90 days from the date of public hearing.
Is that the beginning of the public hearing or the closing of the public
Well,
hearing?
I asked that question previously on a project from a while ago, Jay, and he said the date of, it's not specific, it's not defined. It's the public hearing date, so it spans, the public hearing spans a number of days.
Correct. It's from when it closes,
I might have a problem
because you closed it from that point. It's my understanding.
getting here 2 weeks from tonight.
Need a ride?
I gotta go through cataract surgery Monday,
You don't need to see to
Oh, you need a
vote.
ride.
and I got to go in for a checkup the next day, which would make it Tuesday. So I might not be back. This fucking place, excuse me, this place I go to,
It was a
it's a 4-hour appointment.
Let the minutes reflect
I'm
that.
stuck there for 4 minutes.
Did you get the bleep button on that one?
If you get back, I'll pick you up. You know, no worries. You don't want to
Well,
be
he might
seen
not make
glare.
it back from the
That's what I'm
place,
saying. I might
he's
be still
saying.
sitting at the doctor's office at 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
That's the way they operate.
Do you
Literally.
want to ask
But
if
you can-
anybody in the audience
do it-
has any comments or?
You
All
want to wash your hands?
You don't want them washed.
right, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
But it could be 8
Wait, no,
o'clock.
not
We
yet,
could hold
not
off till
yet.
you get whatever.
Future items on the agenda.
I'll be able to
Everybody sees
drive.
what those are, right?
So I can get home.
Phil, anything for the board?
Nope.
All right, anybody have anything that they want to bring up before we?
No.
Okay. Tracy,
Yes.
Go.
Am I getting recognized by the chair?
Yes, you are.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. Anybody.
Made by Aaron. Made by Tracy, seconded by Aaron. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion carries.
Sign the A&R before